Grahtwood Lore, Part 3. Varieties of Faith, the Khajiit, by Brother Mikhail Karakzor of the Imperial College. As fits their heterodoxy of form, the Khajiit worship many gods and few confine themselves to the Imperial Eight. The Eight: Alkosh, Dragon King of Cats. Pre-Ridata Dynasty Aquanine deity. A variation on the Ultima Auriel, and thus Akatosh as culture hero for the earliest Khajiit. His worship was co-opted during the establishment of the Riddlethar, and he still enjoys immense popularity in Elsewhere's wasteland regions. He is depicted as a fearsome dragon, a creature Khajiit say is just a real big cat. He repelled an early Aldmeri pogrom of Pelinal Whitestrake during mythic times. Riddlethar, Two Moons Dance. The cosmic deity of the Khajiit, the Riddlethar was revealed to Elsewhere by the prophet Riddlethar Ridata, the Main. The Riddlethar is more a set of guidelines by which to live than a single entity, but some of his avatars like to appear as humble messengers of the gods, also known as the Sugar God. Joan and Jode, Little Moon God and Big Moon God. Together, the moons represent duality, fate, and luck. In Khajiiti religion, Joan and Jode are aspects of the lunar lattice, or Ja-Kaje. Mara, the mother cat. Nearly universal goddess, originally a fertility goddess, the Khajiit associate her with Nur of the Anuad, the female principle of the cosmos. She is the lover of Alkosh. Srendar, the runt, god of mercy. Srendar's sphere includes compassion, charity, and justice. In early Aldmeri legends, Srendar is the apologist of men. Kanathi, god of winds. Kanathi is the strongest of the sky spirits. In some legends, he is the first to agree to Lorkhan's plan to invent the mortal plane, and provides the space for its creation in the void. He is also associated with rain, a phenomenon that is said not to have occurred before the removal of Lorkhan's divine spark. Bandar the Bandit God. In most religions, Bandar is a marginal deity, a trickster spirit of thieves and beggars. In Elsewhere, he is more important and is regarded as the pariah. In this aspect, Bandar becomes the cleverness or desperate genius of the long-suffering Khajiit, whose last-minute plans always upset the machinations of their elven or human enemies. He has also lent his name to the Bandari peddlers, the traveling Khajiit merchant tribe. Additional deities with significant Khajiiti cults. Magrus, Cat's Eye, Sun God. Khajiiti version of Magnus, the god of the sun and sorcery, popular with Khajiiti magicians, though less so than Azura. Rajin, the Footpad. Thief and trickster god, the Paring Liar, much beloved of Khajiiti storytellers. Rajin grew up in the Black Yegro section of Senchal, the most famous burglar in Elsewhere's history. Rajin is said to have stolen a tattoo from the neck of Empress Kintyra as she slept. Azura, goddess of dusk and dawn. Patron of Khajiiti magicians, respected rather than feared for her sometime trickery. In myth, she is tied to the origins of the Khajiiti out of Aldmeri stock. Sheogorath, Skooma Cat, the Mad God. The king of insanity appeals to the darker side of the catmen, who chafe at the strictures of sanity and responsibility. Hirsine, Hungry Cat, god of hunting and skin-changing, revered for his fierceness and cunning. Sanguine, Blood Cat, god of death and secret murder. Sanguine's worship is hidden from Cat's Eye, for who can control the urges of blood? Namira, the Great Darkness, an enemy of the living to be placated rather than worshipped. Lorkhan, Moon Beast, pre-Redata Dynasty Aquanaean deity, easily identified with the missing god Lorkhan. This creator-trickster-tester deity is in every Tamaralic mythic tradition. He convinced or contrived the original spirits to bring about the creation of the mortal plane, upsetting the status quo, much like his father Padme had introduced instability into the universe in the beginning place. After the world is materialized, Lorkhan is separated from his divine create center, sometimes involuntarily, and wanders the creation of the Etada. He and his metaphysical placement in the scheme of things is interpreted a variety of ways. In legends, he is almost always an enemy of the Ultima, and therefore an early hero of mankind. Varieties of Faith, the Wood Elves, by Brother Mikhail Karuxor of the Imperial College. The Eight. Though few Bosmer outside the Empire accept the limitations of the Divines to 8. Auriel, King of the Ultima. The elven Akatosh is Auriel. Auriel is the soul of Anoiel, who in turn is the soul of Anu the Everything. He is the chief of most Aldmeri pantheons. Most Altmeri and Bosmeri claim direct descendant from Auriel. In his only known moment of weakness, he agreed to take his part in creation of the mortal plane, that act which forever sundered the elves from the spirit worlds of eternity. To make up for it, Auriel led the original Ultima against the armies of Lorkhan in mythic times, vanquishing that tyrant and establishing the first kingdoms of Ultima, Altmora and Old Elenfey. He then ascended to heaven in full observance of his followers, so that they might learn the steps needed to escape the mortal plane. Ifray, God of the Forest, most important deity of the Bosmeri pantheon. While Auriel, the Time Dragon, might be the king of the gods, the Bosmer revere Ifray as the spirit of the now. According to Wood Elves, after the creation of the mortal plane, everything was in chaos. The first mortals were turning into plants and animals and back again. Then Ifray transformed himself into the first of the Elenfey, or Earthborns. After these laws of nature were established, mortals had a semblance of safety in the new world, because they could finally understand it. Ifray is sometimes called the storyteller for the lessons he taught to the first Bosmer. Some Bosmer still possess the knowledge of the Chaos Times, which they can use to great effect. The Wild Hunt. Arche, God of the cycle of life and death. Arche is the god of burials and funeral rites, and sometimes is associated with the seasons. His priests are staunch opponents of necromancy and all forms of undead. It is said that Arche did not exist before the world was created by the gods under Lorkhan's supervision, urging trickery, and therefore he is sometimes called the Mortal's God. Xerxes. Xerxes is the god of ancestry and secret knowledge. He began as a scribe to Auriel and has kept track of all Aldmeri accomplishments, large and small, since the beginning of time. He created his wife, Ogma, from his favorite moments in history. Mara, goddess of love. Nearly universal goddess. Origin started in mythic times as a fertility goddess. She is sometimes associated with Nur of the Anuad, the female principle in the cosmos that gave birth to creation. For the Bosmer, she is the wife of Auriel. Stendar, god of mercy, god of compassion and righteous rule. In early Aldmeri legends, Stendar is the apologist of men. Zen, god of toil. Bosmeri god of payment in kind, which includes both just remuneration and retribution. Studies indicate origins in both Argonian and Akaviri mythologies, perhaps introduced into Valenwood by Kothringi sailors. Ostensibly an agricultural deity, Zen sometimes proves to be an entity of a much higher cosmic order. Bandar the Bandit God, trickster spirit of thieves and beggars, borrowed from the Khajiit. Additional deities with significant Bosmeri cults. Hermamora, the Woodland Man, malicious trickster spirit, another one, whose Bosmeri cultists say he is not to be confused with the Daedra Hermaeus Mora. Others deride this assertion. Joan and Jode, Little Moon God and Big Moon God. Aldmeri gods of the moons, they are spirits of fortune, both good and bad. Hircine, the huntsman, father of man-beasts. Master of the great hunt and lord of all lycanthropes, worshippers of Hircine are not as ruthless as those who worship other Daedra, and they always give their prey at least a small chance to escape. Lorkhan the Missing God. This creator, trickster, tester deity is in every Tamaralic mythic tradition. His most popular name is the Aldmeri Lorkhan, or Doom Drum. He convinced or contrived the original spirits to bring about the creation of the mortal plane, upsetting the status quo, much like his father Padme had introduced instability into the universe in the beginning place. After the world is materialized, Lorkhan is separated from his divine center, sometimes involuntarily, and wanders the creation of Vetada. He and his metaphysical placement in the scheme of things is interpreted a variety of ways. To elves, he is the most unholy of all higher powers, as he forever broke their connection to the spirit plane. In legends, he is almost always an enemy of the Aldma, and therefore a hero of early mankind. War Customs of the Tribal Bosma by Mistral Aurelian Terescor. While the wood elves of the towns are largely content with their drink and the luxuries provided by imperial trade, remote tribes in the depths of the jungle are far more savage. War is constantly waged under the eaves of the Valenwood. When the tribes are not raiding the Khajiit in earnest, they are raiding one another for sport. Unlike civilized people, tribal Bosma do not fight for any meaningful or constructive purpose. They seem incapable of grasping the concept of fighting for control of land, resources, or defensive borders. Though they may swarm to push out those who harm Valenwood, they evince little interest in conquest for its own sake. Rather, the wood elves raid one another for booty, bragging, and boredom, in that order. Tribal raiders typically rustle timber mammoths and thunderbugs. Many steal items or people that can be ransomed back to the owners. This erratic, irregular warfare is not pursued to the death. Deaths do occur, but they are incidental and usually regretted. Many raids conclude with no fighting whatsoever. It is considered the acme of skill to slip into another tribe's village and steal an item for ransom without being noticed. The larger the item, the greater the prestige. Thanks to centuries of this practice, the tribal Bosma have become legendary for their stealth. The title of their most famous poem, the Meth Eliodon, means the 1,000 benefits of hiding. When death occurs in battle, an archaic provision of the meat mandate requires that a fallen enemy must be eaten completely before 3 days pass. This tradition is now only followed in the most remote and savage villages. The family members of the warrior who slaughtered the enemy may help him with this meal. The tradition of the Morning War is still followed nearly everywhere outside the cities. When a tribe member is slain, he or she is symbolically replaced via a hostage-taking raid. The tribe will seize a captive from the neighboring band. If the deceased was especially powerful or prestigious member of the tribe, multiple captives may be taken to replace them. After a period of physical torture, supposedly to test their worthiness, the captive is joyously welcomed into the clan. This sudden reversal from horrific abuse to loving embrace befuddles the weak wills of the Bosma captive, who cleaves to the tormentors. Traditionally, the victim was given the deceased tribe's members' position, possessions, and family, though this practice may be rarely honored nowadays. I hope you've been enjoying these lore readings, and if you have, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.